Tonight, a breakthrough in a Western Sydney family's search for justice. 9 years after he was originally arrested, Max Spencer charged over the murder of a young mother in her Kingswood home. Wings clipped for the flying kangaroo. Qantas drops domestic routes and signals price hikes as fuel costs soar. Donald Trump's blockade begins while his unholy war of words with the Pope takes another bizarre turn. Sweeping changes for gaming giant Roblox aimed at keeping the 1.7 million Aussie kids that use it safer. Meghan and Harry mania, huge crowds as the ex-royals begin their Australian tour. And more good news for the high-flying Tigers with the co-captain back in the squad.
This is 10 News Sydney with Sandra Sully.
But first tonight, there's been a breakthrough arrest 9 years after a pregnant mother was found dead inside her Western Sydney home. Hayley McClenahan Ernst was just 21 years old when she died. Today, after a heartbreaking search for justice by her family, her former partner fronted court, charged with her murder.
9 years ago, Hayley McClenahan Ernst was found unresponsive inside a Kingswood home. Paramedics tried to revive her, but the 21-year-old and her unborn baby both died at the scene. Hayley's boyfriend, then 21-year-old Max Spencer, was arrested and charged with breaching an apprehended violence order. But no charges were ever laid over Hayley's suspicious death until today. North of Coffs Harbour, a now 30-year-old Spencer was taken into custody this morning and charged with her murder.
She was an amazing mother, amazing person.
Amazing daughter.
We've always wanted her story to be told truthfully.
The breakthrough arrest follows a renewed appeal for fresh information just 2 weeks ago.
I just would like to say to everybody watching, anybody who came forward in the appeal, thank you very, very much.
Last year, a coronial inquest into Hayley's death was suspended, with the matter referred to the DPP. Extensive inquiries followed, including interviews with new witnesses, an almost decade-long investigation, which has finally led to an arrest. Max Spencer faced a bail court hearing this afternoon where he didn't apply for immediate release.
We've lived with this for so long, not knowing what happened or how or what she went through.
I also would like to be thankful to the detectives. They done more in 9 months than the first lot of police done in 9 years.
There's still a long way to go, but answers for this grieving family are now closer than they've ever been. Taylor Ryan, 10 News.
And if you or someone you know is a victim of domestic violence, there is support. You can contact the 24-hour hotline, 1-800-RESPECT, that number, 1-800-737-732. Australian travellers are set to face higher airfares and fewer flight options as Qantas takes drastic measures over soaring fuel prices. The airline is cutting domestic flights and it's charging more for international ones, while refusing to rule out further action amid global oil uncertainty.
Aussies have felt it at the Bowser and could soon feel the pinch in the skies too. The increasing cost of oil sending jet fuel soaring.
This certainly is unprecedented.
The US-Iran war has doubled the price of jet fuel. Qantas has estimated it will cost up to $3.3 billion to keep planes in the air by the second half of the year. And there are concerns around certainty of supply.
For the airlines, this is a nightmare simply because we don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next.
In a statement to the market, the airline said the group is working closely with the government and jet fuel suppliers who continue to provide confidence in fuel supply for the remainder of April and well into May. To further offset costs, Qantas will also slash domestic flights by 5%.
So they cancel flights to try to make sure that all the flights they do run are pretty much running full.
On international routes, demand remains high as passengers look for alternative ways to get to Europe. But Qantas has indicated it will make changes. Carriers based in the Middle East, such as Qatar Airways, Emirates and Etihad, are still operating and tipped to offer more competitive rates through the European summer.
It's a fear versus price factor, whether you're prepared to take a risk, so to speak. You can get a much cheaper fare going through, say, Dubai or Doha.
For travellers flying in the coming months, the advice is simple.
If you've got flights booked, particularly through Asia or the States, make sure you keep them unless you have a very good alternative.
Sophie Smith, 10 News.
The United States has started turning away vessels in the Strait of Hormuz as its blockade starts to take effect. And tonight there are reports that Pakistan is proposing to host another round of peace talks between the United States and Iran before the ceasefire ends next week. All this as the verbal stoush between the President and the Pope only escalates.
Day 45 of the war, day 6 of the ceasefire, and day 1 of the showdown in the Strait.
We can't let a country blackmail or extort the world, because that's what they're doing. They're really blackmailing the world.
With the American blockade now in effect, Iranian state television broadcast this, purporting to show US destroyers being warned by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
You must alter course and go back to the Indian Ocean immediately. If you don't obey my order, you will be targeted.
And then this.
If you see any warship in your vicinity, keep a distance more than 10 miles from them, because I'm ready to open fire on them without any warning.
Data shows 2 ships turned around in the Strait, but several tankers made it through. The President insisting his blockade is working already.
I can tell you that we've been called by the other side. They'd like to make a deal very badly, very badly.
The war in the Middle East is now playing out against the backdrop of a war of words between the President and the Pontiff. Donald Trump posting, then deleting this AI-generated image depicting himself as Jesus Christ. Although today he didn't see it that way.
I thought it was me as a doctor and had to do with Red Cross as a Red Cross worker there, which we support. And only the fake news could come up with that one.
Pope Leo, who is, of course, American, refusing to back down.
I have no fear of neither the Trump administration nor speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel. And that's what I believe. I am called to do what the church is called to do. We're not politicians.
But the actual politicians have plenty of work to do. The UK and France will this week host a summit of dozens of countries. It's the second this month and will again focus on diplomatic efforts to end the war and reopen the Strait.
Australia will most definitely participate in that summit.
As flags flutter on the streets of Tehran, candles are lit in memory of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, killed by an American-Israeli airstrike. This war was originally waged in the name of regime change. 6 weeks on, questions abound over how this ends and why it started. Matt Cannellan, 10 News.
The New South Wales government says it's powering up the state's electric vehicle capacity as the fuel crisis continues to drain drivers' wallets. The new strategy comes amid record demand for EVs as petrol prices surge, with hopes that infrastructure can keep up.
As demand for EVs charges up.
We saw last month in March the largest take-ups of electric vehicles in the state's history.
The state government says it's plugging in. Off the back of April's surge in EV sales amid skyrocketing petrol prices, the government today released its revamped strategy to amp up the state's charging network.
I think now is the time to double down on it, to send a clear message to those in the marketplace who are considering buying their next vehicle that they should be or could be an electric vehicle.
Under the plan, $100 million in funding will deliver up to 1,000 new chargers installed across major highways, city roads and curbside for drivers with no off-street parking. The money will also cover training for around 2,000 mechanics in the regions and expand the incentives program for businesses looking to electrify their fleets.
These are the very things, the very obstacles that are in the way of really growing EV uptake in New South Wales, and we think this plan is going to help us get there.
Electric vehicles made up about 15% of new car sales last month, and the government says that this boost to charging stations will help meet rising demand and plug black spots around the state. This latest rollout is expected to take around 2 years.
Some places are very complicated and actually need a huge energy upgrade. Others are just sort of ready to plug and go.
The opposition says it's all too little, too late.
It demonstrates the lack of work that has been done by this government to improve the charging network across New South Wales.
For drivers who haven't yet made the switch, there is some good news as the fuel crisis continues to bite. Just 19 petrol stations ran dry across the state today, while 189 are out of at least one type of fuel and only 5 have no diesel. A slight increase on yesterday, but still a far cry from the numbers earlier this month. Hannah Stewart, 10 News.
The federal opposition has unveiled its hardline migration policy in a bid to claw back supporters that it's lost to One Nation. It would see social media accounts of visa applicants vetted and those who don't stick to so-called Australian values kicked out of the country. But the policy has been slammed by some, accusing the coalition of desperate dog whistling.
Taking a leaf out of John Howard's election-winning playbook,
we'll decide who deserves protection and the circumstances in which that protection is granted.
Immigration's still a hot topic for the Liberals 25 years later.
We will decide who comes to this country and the circumstances in which they come.
Angus Taylor making his first major policy announcement since replacing Susan Lee as opposition leader.
Immigration numbers are too high, and consequently Australians can see the country they love changing for the worse.
Arguing that
But for an immigration program to work in the national interest, it must discriminate based on values.
There's already an Australian values statement which must be signed by anyone applying for a visa. They include upholding the rule of law, a fair go, and English as the national language.
Most Australians would consider adherence to Australian values a good thing.
Under the Coalition's plan, the statement would be legally binding. Those seeking asylum from a list of so-called safe countries would be easily rejected, and enhanced screening of applicants, including their social media.
The Coalition is far more concerned about their right flank and about One Nation.
The Coalition also wants a joint agency task force to boot out people who overstay their visas.
If you do the wrong thing, we'll keep you out or we'll kick you out. You will be deported.
Sparking concerns we could see a US-inspired ICE regime.
The Coalition think that reintroducing elements of the White Australia policy is the way forward.
What will it cost? How will it be designed?
The Liberal Party has an identity crisis. It's bleeding supporters to One Nation, but also needs to win back inner-city electorates and younger voters. To appeal to all sides, it's proposing to exclude permanent residents from the government's first home buyer 5% deposit policy.
Such a loan scheme, financed by the Australian taxpayer, should be reserved for Australian citizens.
Whether that's enough to win back voters, only time will tell. Hansel Dew, 10 News.
Prince Harry and Meghan have arrived for a tour down under for the first time since they quit royal life. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex kicked off their visit, charming the crowds at a children's hospital in Melbourne. But while they were welcomed warmly there, not everyone has been so kind.
They may no longer roll with the royal folds, but the entourage that surrounds Harry and Meghan is far from everyday reality.
So happy to be here, thank you.
Their first trip to Australia since 2018, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex touched down in Melbourne on a Qantas flight, travelling business class.
A lot of people didn't even realise they were on board until they actually exited the aircraft, and everyone was like, "Is that Prince Harry?" Like, wow.
A mixed reception anticipated. The Sussexes reportedly warned to brace for some cynicism.
They seem pretty. I think they seem pretty pleasant, had a few smiles on their faces. So.
Australia should never ever accept them coming here in Australia.
Melbourne's Royal Children's Hospital was their first point of call, and there it was pure delight. Crowds lining the levels above, nurses watching from windows, patients and their families eager to see a real-life Duke and Duchess in the flesh.
Ginger's law. Yes. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. Ginger's law. Give me some. Give me some.
I just met the Prince of England.
And how do you feel?
Awesome!
Prince Harry and Meghan's visit to the Royal Children's Hospital follows in the footsteps of Queen Elizabeth II, who visited in 2011. 17-year-old Scarlett met the Queen then and was shocked to hear this morning she would be meeting a member of the British royal family once again.
I thought, I think you're joking, but okay. He asked me how my care was, and I had to point out how beautiful and how lovely our nurses are.
Travelling as private citizens and not as representatives of the British monarchy, the pair went their separate ways in the afternoon. Meghan off to a women's homeless and family violence shelter before they reconvened to meet with families of war veterans. While they're here, Harry and Meghan will visit Melbourne, Sydney and Canberra, marking 4 whirlwind days of engagements with commercial aspects too. Prince Harry to deliver a keynote speech at a summit here in Melbourne, while Meghan hosts a women's retreat in Sydney. Monetising their visit, a key difference from a royal tour, although the couple's fees have taken a nosedive. In 2020, reports indicated Prince Harry's price tag for speaking engagements was upwards of $1 million. Rumours suggest his payment for this week's speech is closer to $50,000. Back in 2018, they were welcomed by rapturous crowds and the then Prime Minister. Throngs of people attended their public outings with flowers and fanfare. Today, the pair are clearly still a draw card.
When my mum heard, she burst over and ran to the crowd.
Never met a prince unless I say my husband.
Steph Baumgartel, 10 News.
We all have to say that, don't we?
I think so. Good response.
Not have to. Gun at your head. No, kidding. Sorry, Tara. Tara's here with sport on a much brighter and lighter note. Good news in Tiger Town, set to roar. Jerome Luai is back.
And what a time to return, Sandra. The excitement machine is primed to pounce in their showdown against the defending premiers, the Broncos, on Saturday. Playing second fiddle, the Swans and the Giants have a crack at the AFL over their Friday night fixturing. And danger in the dugout. Frightening scenes in the Major League as Baltimore's manager cops a foul ball to the head. I can confirm he is OK. We'll have all the reaction and more a little later in sport.
I don't think the hubbies were watching. We're OK.
We are good.
See you later. Thanks, Tara. Stay with us if you can. Still to come, some shock allegations. New South Wales Police investigate assault allegations at their own training academy involving recruits. A twist in Iran's traitor list. An update over its football captain's assets following the asylum drama. All aboard the new first-class commute from the city to the south coast. And details on the recovery journey of this little platypus named Nemo to just keep swimming.